All right, what's going on, guys? Simple Sports back again, and today I'm bringing you my top 10 NFL storylines going into the season. Basically, the 10 questions that I want answered either over the course of the season or by the time the season starts, and you'll see what I mean as I get into some of these. But let's jump right into it. Um, Obviously, we got football season around the corner. We just had the Hall of Fame game, and we got a couple more preseason games until we get into the actual regular season. But you know, it always begs questions. As a fan, and being that I'm trying to be somewhat a quote unquote analyst. And so these are the things that I want to see be answered, like I said, over the course of the next couple of weeks and heading on through the NFL season. All right, so number one on my list, or I should say number 10, I guess. Can Odell Beckham and the Giants bounce back from what was, in my opinion, an ugly ending to the season? So obviously Odell had the whole boat issue. I shouldn't say issue. I don't think it's an issue per se, but the whole boat thing, whether or not that affected his play and is it a distraction and all of that stuff. Here's my thing. There are certain players in whether it be the NFL, NBA, MLB, whatever league, collegiate or professional. There are certain players, certain personalities, right, that they're there to make the game better and more entertaining. Like, no offense to Larry Fitzgerald, who's one of my favorite receivers, but I don't want every receiver on every team to be Larry Fitzgerald, right? I don't want every receiver to be cool, calm, and collected at all times. Like, I want some sort of dynamic to them, and Odell brings that dynamic along with a ton of talent. Now, I have this theory that diva receivers simply don't win you championships. And I can't recall anybody who brought the level of attention that Odell brings, or even close to it, that was able to win a championship. On a, and I'm saying like being like the face, right? Odell is the face of the Giants. They didn't win a championship. Antonio Brown, face of the Steelers, they didn't win a championship. Players like that, I think, are for the entertainment, not necessarily for the winning. And it's just reality. It's not a disrespect or a hate against those players. I love watching them play, but they're not on teams that win championships. Now, it's yet to be determined if Antonio Brown or Odell can be one of those guys. But there's been a lot of those types of players just recently. I mean, you look at, again, Odell, Antonio Brown, but you have others as well who have come and gone. Terrell Owens, Chad Johnson, they're good receivers, they're great receivers, but are you winning championships? And that question remains to be seen with Odell Beckham. So I'd be interested to see how they bounce back this year. I do have them as my pick to get to the Super Bowl. Not necessarily the logical or, I guess, headstrong pick. Is more of this is just something I want to see, because I'd like to see the trilogy between the Pats and Giants and Brady to win his sixth along with Belichick, and they both retire at the end of the year. Turn it over to Garoppolo. All's well that ends well. But, that's just sort of a fantasy, I guess. Number 2. Will the Falcons suffer the Super Bowl hangover? Obviously, they blew a 28-3 lead. Very easily could be standing here in front of us today as Super Bowl champs. But they aren't. They blew the 28-3 lead, and I don't even know how you could do such a thing, but hey, it is what it is. Can they bounce back from that, though? They have been, of recent years, over the past 5 to 7 years, a team that has come up short quite a lot. And last year, honestly, to me, they were sort of a surprise, because even though they were good, I didn't expect them to get to the Super Bowl. I thought that once they got to the playoffs, they'd sort of be the same old Falcons. And they proved me wrong, at least in that regard. They did get to the Super Bowl, but obviously, as I said, they lost, so we'll see. Number 3, can Trubisky and Jared Goff play? So we saw the Rams pick up Jared Goff last year, didn't play a whole lot. And then we saw the Bears move up this year in some unexplainable move, in my opinion, to get Trubisky. The question is, can they play? I don't know. Obviously, I'm not there. I know what I see on TV, and it doesn't look, too encouraging for the future for either team, in my opinion. I will say they both have the build. Like, they're both really athletic-looking guys, fairly tall, or I guess for the position, they are tall enough. Seem to have decent arms. Jared Goff just seems to not know what he's doing yet at the NFL level. I think he has the arm talent to make all the throws, but it just seems like there's so much going on, and he's not able to process it all. And obviously, the jury's still way out on, well, both of them, but especially Trubisky. There's zero NFL tape on him, obviously. So I'm going to give him a watch in the preseason, see how he fares. Same thing with Goff. I will say this about Goff, and what Goff, and I'm sure a lot of people are telling him inside that organization, here's what he has to realize. He is in probably one of the best positions that you could be in, just from a player's perspective, and this is why. First of all, you play in LA, okay? You play in LA. You play for a quote-unquote new franchise, right? They're not technically new, but they're sort of hitting the reset button, right? They got a brand new quarterback, getting a brand new coach, brand new stadium, brand new city. Like, everything about that organization is brand new, and you're the brand new quarterback. Excuse me. And you are surrounded actually by a lot of talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So if you are at least competent, if you're Jared Goff and you're at least competent, you actually have a chance this year to be a very decent team, 500, maybe a game above 500, if he can pull his end of the deal. They have a running back in Gurley who his rookie year looked impressive. Last year, not so much. So we'll see what he brings to the table this year. But if he can produce, and that defense, as we all assume, is going to produce, Jared Goff is the missing link. And if he can be even competent, Alex Smith level, Ryan Tannehill, someone like that, Andy Dalton, who maybe not necessarily the greatest top 10, top 5 quarterback in today's league, but serviceable, will sort of band-aid you over at least. And if you determine that he's not that good, that you need to move on, I think if he can at least be a guy that can get you over to the next guy, you have a lot to work with. And again, if he's even remotely competent, they have a lot of talent around him, and they could be this year's most improved team. And with the Bears, there's not a lot of positives there. Except for the fact that you are sort of wiping the slate clean as an organization as far as personnel. Got rid of Cutler, got rid of Jeffries. So, it's yet to be seen on both. I think Trubisky is going to be a flat-out bust. I think Jared Goff, if he's at least capable of being an average quarterback, they can make the playoffs, maybe make a little noise, something like that. I don't know. But we'll see. Their defense is really good. That's the only thing. So if he can be competent or average, they have a legitimate shot. But it really depends on him. Number 4, is the window still open for the Packers and Aaron Rodgers to win a title? There's been injuries over the last couple of years between either Rodgers or Jordy or the defense or at running back. I don't really know what's going on. I don't particularly follow the organization that much. Not on like a personal level, I guess. I follow them enough to know about the team. I don't know. I think their window has closed. There's a lot of teams on the rise. With young quarterbacks, young, good defenses. And they didn't make a lot of moves this offseason to get much better, and they really got fortunate last year to get into the playoffs because they played amazing over the last couple of games. So, we'll see. I personally think that window is closed with this team. Now, I think you can still win with Rodgers if you revamp the team a little bit, but there's not much there that pops other than Aaron Rodgers. So, that we'll see how it goes. 5, how will the Cowboys manage early in the year with the potential suspension of Ezekiel Elliott missing some time? I've heard 1 game. I've heard all the way as much as 10 games. I think it's going to be somewhere between 4 to 6 games. And if so, that's a significant chunk of time to miss, especially with it only being the second year, and you have a second-year quarterback who largely was successful in part due to Zeke being able to run the football and behind that offensive line. So we'll see how that goes. I guess, and it sort of leads into my next point, but we're going to really see, is Dak for real? So number 6, is Dak really real? Is he the guy, or did he just have a okay breakout rookie season? We've seen this a couple of times. RG3, and maybe not even necessarily in their rookie season, but we've seen that sort of breakout year, and it's like, okay, so-and-so has arrived. And then things start to fall apart the year after or later in the year. For example, Cam Newton, unbelievable year, loses the Super Bowl, and has kind of just fallen off the map. I mean, he was the face of the league in 2016, and then just kind of disappeared, faded off into the sunset. Pretty bad year last year. RG3 has sort of faded off into the sunset, had a great rookie campaign. Obviously, he got hurt, so that contributed to his sort of falling off the map. But still, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, Colin Kaepernick, there's a lot of guys who had successful rookie campaigns or successful one seasons. Even Carson Wentz last year started off the year pretty hot and just kind of fizzled out. So we'll see. I don't know. I hope that Dak is real, just because football is better when the Cowboys are good. They do dominate the media, and it drives me nuts. But would it really be NFL Sundays and, watching First Take or Undisputed in the mornings, Monday mornings after the Cowboys late night game, and they're just getting destroyed? Like that year they went 2-14 or 4-12 or whatever their record was. Like, it was a pretty, obviously it's a down year for the organization, but it was boring in terms of news and talk. Like, it was fairly boring that year. So we'll see. I hope he's real, because they need a quarterback, obviously. And if Zeke is going to be out for a number of games, then he's going to obviously have to carry the load. And so we're going to get to see pretty early, is he the real deal for real? I'm not saying last year was a fluke. I don't want to go there. I just want to give it some time before we start crowning these guys. He had a great rookie year, but let's not make it seem like he's the second coming of, Tom Brady as far as being the greatest of all time, or, like an Aaron Rodgers or a Big Ben or anyone like that. Like, he hasn't won anything yet. Okay, let's be clear. He's played one full season, and he lost their only playoff game. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. Now, I'm interested to see how it all turns out, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Next. And this one is something I want to see before the end of the offseason as we start the regular season. Is Colin Kaepernick going to be on an NFL roster by the time we start the season? My head tells me yes. My heart says no. My head tells me owners and GMs and whoever else, maybe some coaches, maybe even some players, are essentially sending a message saying, hey, look, this is something that you can't do. Now, I did a video on Colin Kaepernick, and I'm actually going to do a second part to that video probably tomorrow. But I want to give a brief overview of my view on that whole situation. Basically, I understand everything, okay? I get it. It's if you want to say it's a business move or it's racially motivated, politically motivated, however you want to label it, as far as Colin Kaepernick not being on the team, I'm okay with it. Here's what I would want someone to explain to me, okay? I get it. I personally don't think he did anything wrong, and there's a lot of people that don't think he did anything wrong. He's not on the NFL roster, and I'd like to know why. Because he did nothing wrong. He didn't commit a crime. He didn't, he's not a domestic abuser. He's not a drunk driver. He's not a murderer. He's not a thief. At least these are not things that have been mentioned, obviously. Who knows what people do in their personal life. But he didn't do anything wrong in his protest. My question is, are owners willing to forego their stance to sign the guy? I understand that it could affect their bottom dollar. And if that is your true reason for not signing him, I'm perfectly okay with that. Because Colin Kaepernick, despite his stance, he knows, or at least he should have known, that if he did what he did, it could potentially affect his employment. So I'm cool with that. Don't lie to me. Okay, now listen, I've not played in the NFL. Never played in the NFL. But I know I'm not an idiot, and I know talent when I see it. Don't sit here and tell me that there are 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL and Colin Kaepernick is not better than any of them. And definitely don't tell me that there are, I don't know, assume there's 3 quarterbacks on each team. And I don't know if every team has 3 quarterbacks, but just assuming so, that means there's 96 guys out there. You're going to tell me that you can find 96 people in this NFL that he's better than, that are better than Kaepernick? No, okay? I'm no dummy. Now, I can name 8 to 10 starters right now that I would take Kaepernick over them. So don't tell me it's not because he's not talented enough, because he is, okay? Don't kid yourself. He's talented enough to be a starter in this league. The question is, does his talent outweigh the potential loss and distraction that you could potentially have by bringing him into your team? I don't know the answer to that question, but if you want to tell me that is the reason, I'm cool with that. Just don't tell me it's because he's not skilled enough, or it's because, he took a knee for the flag, because there are people that have done a lot worse that are on teams right now. Okay. So yeah, I would be interested to see if he's on a team. I know personally, I would take him as my backup. If I were a GM or, as a fan of my team, I would take him as a backup, but that's just me. Next, second to last, and to be honest, this is first. This is the number 1 overall story. Not quite yet, so let's move forward. My second to last point is, which rookies will have the biggest impact heading into the season and over the course of the season? There were a lot of rookies that were drafted in the first round that I think could have an immediate impact. And there was a couple in the second round that I think could have an immediate impact, and so forth and so on. One that I don't know if he'll have an impact this year, but I think you'll be able to see what his impact is going to be, and that is Reuben Foster. The guy in front of him got hurt, if I'm not mistaken, and so he could potentially be the starter this year. So we could see at least right up front and early if he's going to be a viable option in the league. Obviously, we got a couple quarterbacks that we want to look out for: Deshaun Watson, Mitch Trubisky. I know Mahomes went to Kansas City. I don't know how much he's going to play this year. And a couple others: Adoree Jackson, the cornerback. Joe Mixon, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette got rocked the other day at practice. I don't know if you guys saw that, but if you didn't, go check it out. It's pretty sweet. There's already people talking about he's going to be a bust and all that stuff. I'm like, look, dude, it is the NFL, okay? Like, give the guy a break, all right? What was it? The receiver, John Ross, Corey Davis went to Tennessee. Garrett that went to Cleveland. There's a lot of guys out there that I think could have a pretty quick impact on the league. So we'll see. Honestly, I don't know out of those guys. If I had to pick a rookie of the year, I think I'd go with McCaffrey. I think he's in the best situation because the Panthers have a solid defense, not great, solid, and they have a lot of weapons on offense. Maybe not the best weapons, but there's a lot of them. Okay, you got Benjamin. You got, I don't know, is Ginn still there? I don't even know. I'm assuming he's still there, but let's assume Ginn is still there. Obviously, you have Cam Newton. You have a solid running game. And then you add Christian McCaffrey. You add Olsen, the tight end. So they have weapons that will open up the field for him to do his work. It's just a matter of how productive can he be. Now, this is the topic that I was going to get to. This is technically my first topic or my number one storyline, but I have sort of a 1A and 1B because one of them is sort of personal. It's like a home pick, I guess, so we'll get to that in a second. So my biggest storyline are the Pats. Can the Pats repeat? Can they go undefeated? Or is this all just a bunch of smoke? Does Brady fall off the cliff this year, as Max Kellerman from First Take likes to say? Or do they actually go back to the Super Bowl and win it? Now, here is my theory. I think not so much theory, but more just something I want to see. And I said this before in an earlier video. I'd like to see Pats at 18-0 again against the Giants at, I don't know, whatever their record would be. Who cares? Against the Giants in the Super Bowl for the third and final time, or at least in my lifetime, or in Brady and Eli's lifetime. I think the Pats go undefeated again, and this time they finish the job. Brady and Belichick get their 6th ring, and they both retire. Turn it over to Garoppolo and insert coach there, whoever, I don't care. And that's that. That's what I want to see. How likely that is, probably not likely at all. Now, it is very possible that the Pats end up in the Super Bowl. Just will they end up there at 18-0? Probably not. But we'll see. It would be fun to watch. I will say it's not far-fetched because they won the Super Bowl last year. And then they went in this year and got significantly better, at least on paper. So it's not that crazy to think that they could do it. And finally, or sort of like my encore, my PS, the Tennessee Titans. So for those of you who know me personally, know I'm a Titans fan. And I want to see if we are actually in contention for the playoffs and potentially maybe winning a playoff game. Maybe even 2, depending on how the chips fall. And I don't want people to get too crazy, okay? So I want to make sure I am clear with this. The Tennessee Titans last year went 9-7. Very easily could have been 10-6, 11-5. Obviously, you can say that for every team, right? So I don't want to read too much into that. I'm just saying, realistically, they should have won another game or 2. They blew a couple of games big time. And then let a couple of games at the end get away. The Jacksonville game, no excuse for that. Because if they win that game, they go to the playoffs because they won the last game. So they end up 10-6. They are in the playoffs. They won their division. Probably get smoked by the Pats, but that's another story for another day. My personal record, my personal prediction is 10-6. I think they do a game better this year. I think they win the division because Andrew Luck is down. Who knows for how long. That organization is a mess. The Jags are a mess. The Houston Texans are legit, but their quarterback is obviously unproven. Savage is probably going to be a starter, at least from what I understand, going into the season. But Deshaun Watson is apparently impressive. So we'll see. I don't know. I haven't been following that whole dynamic. We'll see, I guess, in the coming weeks how that plays out. I will say this. If the Houston Texans don't seem to be have found their way at quarterback, I think the Titans can win that division simply because the rest of the division isn't that good. And so if the Texans don't have a quarterback, I don't think their defense will be enough to overcome both our offense and our defense, because our defense got better last year. And for people that don't follow them, their defense for the last couple of years has actually been pretty good, minus the secondary. The secondary has caused them a lot of headaches, and I think that's where a lot of their losses come, is from the secondary. The secondary is just not good. Their front seven is pretty good. Gerald Casey, pretty good. Arakpo, pretty good. Derek Morgan is pretty good. They went out this year. They got Logan Ryan and what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name now. The safety. Oh crap, what's his name? I can't even think of his name. And they drafted Adoree Jackson. So if their secondary can hold up, they should have a pretty decent offense or defense. I just want to be, as a Titans fan, I want to feel what it's like to be one of the last teams standing at the end of the year. It's been so long. I think the last time they made the playoffs was 2010 or 2008 maybe. And they lost in the first round anyway. Their schedule's not good. It's not an easy schedule, especially to start off with. It sort of tapers down as you go out throughout the year, but their opening schedule is not very it's not favorable. I can tell you that much. Pull it up here right now. I'm pretty sure they open with the Raiders. So yeah, they open with the Raiders. Then they get the Jags, and then they get the Seahawks, Texans, and then the Dolphins. So their first 5 games, 2 of those they should win. Jags and the Dolphins. The other 3 are very much up in the air. Seattle, they do get at home, and they do get the Raiders at home, but they have to go to the Texans, and they have to go to the Dolphins. Then they get the Colts, Browns, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Colts, Texans, Cardinals, 49ers, Rams, Jaguars. So their first 5 games could be a little rough. After that, I think all of those games are winnable. Jags, Rams, Niners, definitely winnable. Cardinals are winnable. You have the Colts and Texans. Colts is definitely winnable. We'll see about the Texans. Steelers, they play in Pittsburgh, so I don't know about that one. The Bengals, they play at home. And the Ravens, they play at home. And they get the Ravens, Bengals, Steelers in a row. So it could be rough, but we'll see. I think they go 10-6. And I think they win the division, they get to the playoffs, and then we'll see what happens from there. At least that's what I hope for as a fan. So those are my top storylines heading into the season. I'll get into some more stuff later. Like I said, I'll probably do another video on Kaepernick tomorrow, talk about that. But, yeah, that's it for now. You guys take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.